Welcome back, episode 3. So, we were formerly known as two frat boys from college, start a business, build a brand, sell their company, go on a 16-year ride, but we just renamed it and now we're just called two frat boys. So, welcome back to two frat boys. I'm Anthony Aldano.
And I'm Jesus Diaz. And the two frat boys moniker, there's a reference there, an homage to one of our favorite artists, Tupac. So we're going to start it with the number two. And, throughout our relationship and our business partnerships, we've always played Tupac in the background. He's been the soundtrack of our life.
That's a good point. At some point we should start using music and using like our favorite songs to maybe intro the show, but anyway.
Cool. So we'll go with Hit 'em Up. Hit 'em Up will be the theme song for today's episode because this is where the competition begins. So just to frame this for those kind of tuning in for the first time, it's now 2001. We've had a 2-year run of executing a really popular show. The audience is growing, the awareness is growing in the marketplace. Sponsors are starting to knock on our doors. A lot is happening, a lot of people in the mix. Competitors are starting to show up on the doorstep. So we're going to talk a little bit about all of those things. And also to kind of kick off, we just launched our website. So on 01/01/01, we found that significant. We decided to go live with latinosstep.com. And so this is the year where we really kind of break through the windows, break through the doors, and myself and Anthony really kind of jive and start working together fluidly to create the show and also kind of delegate the roles because while Anthony is focused on the marketing and the teams and the launch of the show, I'm focused on the website and getting sponsors and some of the other ancillary details of the event. Um, so just to quickly jump in, we had launched, as I mentioned, the website in January '01. We started the guest book, which was a popular feature of the site where a bunch of anonymous hate started spewing in. We didn't recognize that was going to happen, but it was a nice side effect that drew people in. And then we just started advertising the summer show, which was the third annual Latino Greek Summer Step and Stroll show. So in terms of venues, we had to go get a venue that could accommodate both a show and an after party. And, there was a venue not far from where I lived in Jamaica, Amazura. Anthony, I don't know if you recall.
Who found that venue actually? You
I
remember?
knew it existed, and I think I may have suggested it, but you did the legwork of contacting Ali, who is the owner.
Yeah, yeah. That the venue was decent. It's in like a terrible area of Jamaica. It's like right next to Sutphin, the big train station hub now. But the guy was he was a little just a little grimy with his prices, and he's a real smooth, slick talker. I don't really trust people that talk too slick because I'm very adverse to like salesmen that are trying to like pull the wool over my eye. But the venue was decent.
Yeah, it was good for what we were doing, and it at the end of the day, if I remember, all in the costs were low enough that we could execute a
I
show.
actually remember it was five. He charged us $5,000. Uh, I'm not sure if that included lighting. I can't remember. I want to say all in it was 5,000, which wasn't cheap for us at the time.
Yeah, it
Definitely
sounds
not cheap.
right. But given that the show had already, this is fun because now we can talk the economics years later. So
Yeah.
given that the show, we had anticipated, look, there were 900 people last year. We're gonna at least get to 1,000 this year. So if we pay 5,000 in expenses all in, we can not only take 1,000 people, maybe charge $10 a head and make $10,000, and that's a 5K profit, and let
Well,
alone the
well, you're
after
not
party.
you're not including trophies, prize money. Oh, was there a prize money? There wasn't prize money. You're right. Okay.
Yeah, so it was basic economics before the competition, yeah, at times, and then we also had an after party that we could charge for. So the unfortunate thing, years later, obviously we didn't recognize the element of the neighborhood that might show up because they saw a bunch of really beautiful Latinos coming together, and they would want to be a part of this after party. So we started raising prices on the after party to like 20, $25 at a certain point. But that's a separate detail. Anyway, so we are actively promoting and marketing the show. As I mentioned, from my lens, I was building the website. I was reaching out to sponsors. I had some connections, fortunately at the time, to Urban Latino Magazine. Being an alumni of New York University, one of their partners was from NYU, so I connected with him. He met with us, and I think, Anthony, you were in New York at the time we met with them.
I just wanted to say rest in peace to Urban Latino Magazine. Let's pour some liquor out for them because they're no longer with us.
Yeah, yeah, they were ahead of their time, and yeah.
Should we actually give people listeners the business lesson on the Urban Latino
Go for it. Go for it.
situation?
Yeah.
The big business lesson, the big one. So basically, I mean, all right. So this goes for entrepreneurs out there that are gonna start something and then grow it. And the beautiful thing about starting your own business is that you have a lot of love for whatever it is you create. And Urban Latino guys, like Jesus said, he knew them. I think there was an NYU connection there, right? At some point, yeah. So somehow, yeah, one of the guys from Urban Latino Magazine, RIP, went to NYU, and then Jesus also went to NYU, and there was a connection there. But anyway, so at some point, I'm fast forwarding, but we work with Urban Latino after our company gets acquired. Our Latino Step gets acquired. Was it Latino? What were we named Latino Step when we got acquired?
Yeah. That's the incorporated name. Yep.
All right. So after we get acquired, we start working with Urban Latino more. We actually tried to, our new company, our bigger media company, tried to actually also acquire them. They didn't like the offer. They rejected it. Then, and again, Urban Latino, in their heyday, they were super popular. They were the magazine, the media. They had really great parties. They knew all the people. They were very well connected. They get an offer at some point, and Jesus, you'll help me remember the numbers. They get an offer to get bought out or to buy the magazine for a million or a million or more, or was it?
The financial terms I don't recall so well, but it was a significant amount of money to.
Yeah, it was at least a million. It was a million and change. Do you remember who made them that offer?
Not specifically,
Right.
no.
So basically, they get a very generous offer, a very good offer. But again, when you grow a business, you love it a lot. You think you can do better. You think you can hold out for a better offer. They decided with all the rights they had to wait for a better offer. That better offer never came. That was going to be the best offer they ever got, and then eventually, slowly, they start unwinding and tanking, and they ended up tanking. I mean, but anyway, the point is that what you learn from that is that sometimes you got to make hard decisions, like not in similar but different. When me and Jesus decided to join, when we get the offer to be acquired, we could have said no. We could do it ourselves, and yes, we could have done it ourselves, but you need money, so we said yes. That did well for us, but again, the learning lesson for Urban was that, and I'm sure they themselves, if you ask them, they would say, yeah, we should have took that offer. I mean, that's it.
Yeah. So, and that's a fair point. The other detail there is that, so Urban, turns out that offer years later, our company, Latcom, which acquired us, makes an offer to Urban, a second offer, that was a lot lower than the original that they had received from another company. And there was a lot of due diligence, a lot of back and forth to try to figure out the terms. And ultimately they said no to that, and we ended up being acquired again later on. But those are future episodes that we'll talk about. So just getting back to the show, I called up Urban. We had a meeting with them. They liked us. They saw a lot of young, hungry entrepreneurs in us that they were themselves. In all fairness, they were groundbreaking, like you said. They in turn sponsor the show. by bringing on additional sponsors for it. So they weren't going to give us money for it, but they were going to market it in their magazine. They were going to attract new sponsors for it because they saw what we were doing and they were like, "Wow, we're talking to a lot of clients that want live events, and you guys are, doing it." So
I actually remember regarding the working with Urban at in that specific at that time, their big sponsor was Air Force at the time, and they were telling us that they had a budget. They had a small budget from Air Force from their Air Force budget to give to us for our step shows. We waited a long time to see that money from the Air Force or from them, so that was a problem. But like Jesus said, actually, I'll let Jesus continue, and then I'll jump in later.
yeah, so Urban then kind of opens the door to the Air Force. They open the door to several other organizations. They introduced us to El Diario La Prensa, which was a Spanish newspaper, and they sponsor it as well. I reach out to Rincon Musical, which was a physical music location where they would sell CDs back in the day. They sponsor it. They paid on time, fortunately. We also have a bunch of what we call silver sponsors, which were locals that were supportive of our endeavor. So, like one of our fraternity brothers, who's a tax man, a tax accountant, Dennis Sepulveda, D-Rock, he sponsored the show. Who else sponsored? Noah's Ark Pet Clinic, which was another fraternity brother of ours. Repertorio Español, which I think was Urban that found them for us. And iCaramba.com was also a gold sponsor of the event. And iCaramba is interesting because they were the group that eventually acquired us. But at that time, what they were doing was sponsoring our show so they can get behind the scenes and understand what we were doing so well. And so we let the snake into the garden without knowing it at that time. And they came to the show and supported it in their own way, represented, marketed on their website to their membership, etc. And do you have additional?
Yeah, I until we had talked before in the pre-show, I totally forgot that Icaramba was even at this show. But to your point, I mean, it was the first time I guess they went to our physical show, and they must have been impressed because I was impressed with the attendance. I mean, I think we had 1,200 people that showed up. That's probably bigger than any show that they were sponsoring. So at the time, Icaramba had partnered with LatinoGreeks.com to do shows. And to my knowledge, they were not getting 1,200 people. So that Amazura show was important for us chronologically in terms of the way the company moves and grows, and it basically helps us, puts us in a really favorable light in order to want to be acquired. So yeah.
So also in 2001, just to pick up from there, Anthony was living in Georgia. I was living in New York. So we were really kind of like long distance. And this is pre social media. So we were long distance, always on the phone, trying to catch up and see what was going on. I became kind of the soldier on the ground. So was trying to, stop by Amazura to just look through the venue. And the coincidence is that, like, even though 2001 was the show with the fewest amount of teams to this point, so we ended up only having 7 teams register for the actual show. It felt a lot bigger than the other 2 shows because of the word of mouth that was really building up the website. We did a launch party. Do you remember that for the website, which we didn't talk about?
Vaguely, yeah, and it's not even worth mentioning, but yes, it's totally. I do remember now.
Yeah,
Didn't we piggyback off of the LUL NYU chapter party?
uh, probably.
Yeah, we piggybacked on, yeah. Yeah, Omicron was doing a party at a club, and we said, "Hey, can we tag along?"
Yeah, and the cool part about the pre that launch party, if you will, and this talks to Anthony's persona. I think like you always had a marketing lens, and you always wanted to build awareness and like launch in an official way. And so that's important, I think, with any business that you're launching. Like you want it to be official because it's special, like what you're doing. At that time, we didn't know what it was going to become, but it became something much bigger for both of us in our careers. So I think the nice part about the pre-party, from what I remember, and I remember very little because I probably drank a bit much, is that most of the people in attendance were actually the Step and Stroll teams that we had already worked with. Like the teams themselves were there, and we spent a lot of the night just talking to them and kind of telling them about what we were up to and what we're doing. And it was cool. Like, this is more of being true to the streets, like we talked about in the prior episode. Like, they knew that we were the official show, and that would come in handy for us later on in 2001.
Yeah, what I hearing you talk just now, it reminds me how, like, the competitive advantage that we had at the time was that our relationships with these teams. I feel like we were very collaborative, and we cared about their concerns, and we would call them, and I think we the attention that we paid to them was really, I think, the difference. And then as we got bigger, the production aspect of our shows, the venues that we had our shows at, would also elevate little by little.
Good point. Good point. And so for us, as we went through the year, something interesting started happening. I think this was about maybe March or April 2001. Again, we had already broadcast our step show date. It was going to be, I believe, July 14th of that year, and so we started marketing towards it. And what happened is, on our own latinostep.com guest book, we start seeing these anonymous messages about another show that's happening in June 2001. So literally a month before ours, in New York City. That was our hometown. Like, New York City was where our show lived every summer. And so that staple was who we were at the time. We hadn't gone international yet, or national, I should say. And so anyone putting a show directly before yours a month before in the same city, like, that was a signal, and
Very disrespectful. They were very disrespectful.
and the group that was doing that was, not only were they disrespecting us by stepping ahead of us, but they were our own fraternity brothers, under the guise of a website that they had launched, ripburningsands.net. And so I remember we saw that, and we tried reaching out to them and just to understand what was going on. Why are you guys doing this, like, directly ahead of ours? Like, that's, you can do it in upstate New York where you're from, but don't put it in our city, in our year, etc. And fortunately for us, that show never got off the ground. And I don't remember how much we had to do with that, other than, like, I think it was just their incompetence that didn't make it work. So
Yeah, that I when we were talking in the pre-shows about this, I don't even remember Burning Sands. I don't even remember hearing you say it. Yeah, I kind of remember they were trying to do something, but yeah, and then the show never happened, and they went away, and we kept going. But again, I think our biggest competitor was Latino Greeks, and only because they had the backing of Ay Caramba, which we mentioned earlier. And Ay Caramba, terrible name for a Latino media company, horrendous name. But Ay Caramba had, their CEO was a wonderful salesman who could sell ice to an Eskimo, and that's the key. It's another, for all you business guys out there, the key to launching a business is to have a sales guy that can sell water to a fish, ice to an Eskimo, fire to the devil. If you got someone like that, you will always succeed.
yeah, so as I mentioned, Burning Sands didn't happen, and as Anthony mentioned, LatinoGreeks.com was also on the horizon. And so a few months later, they start advertising, although they were more respectful in the sense that they did their shows in other states. So they didn't directly come to New York City in the middle of the summer where we were, but they started stepping into the foreground. And they had their website had been online for 4 years at this point because they started, excuse me, in 1997. So their website went live in 97. Latino Greeks were familiar with their website because they were first to market in that space, but they weren't doing step or stroll shows. And that's where they were starting to step into our kind of universe. And, it was more concerning for us than Burning Sands because they had reputation, they had money, as Anthony mentioned, and they seemed to be a more stable competitor who had established a footprint already. So um,
When was the Limelight show that they
that
did?
was September after our show. So they were not marketing it ahead of us, which was, I think, okay by our standard. Um, oh, I also forgot Ad Greek, which was another sponsor of the show. They were Mr. Kim, for those who remember Jamaica Queens, right by St. John's. He had a Greek shop. Anyway,
It's
so
still there. That Greek shop is still there.
get out of here. Wow,
I
Mr.
was
Kim.
I was there. I don't know if it's Mr. Kim, but I was there 2 years ago.
Yeah,
I don't know why. I think I was driving by and I just stopped. I stopped to go in. Yeah, they're in business.
excellent, excellent. So getting into the 2001 show, we had 7 teams lined up. It's not the ideal number for us, but we had the big names. We had LUL, we had Sigma Lambda Beta, we had Lambda Theta Phi, Omega Phi Beta, Kazi, Chi Upsilon Sigma, and Alpha Rho Lambda again from years prior. So we had a good footprint of New York-based organizations. So we
Please don't
knew
forget Lambda Pi Upsilon.
Lambda Pi
Put some
Upsilon.
put
Yes,
some
how can I
respect on their
forget?
name,
Most
please.
important,
Yeah.
yeah, because they were also still involved loosely with the show. So as Anthony's kind of soldier in New York while he was in Georgia, I was regularly in touch with Robert Pacheco and Annette Ravello at the time. Annette was in El Payu, and one of the other ambitious things we thought to launch prior to this show happening was what we called an MC the Show contest, where um, MCs or people who wanted to MC our event would be able to send in VHS tapes to us in the mail, and we'd review them and pick a winner to host the actual event. And we'd fly you in no matter where you were in the world. So we had a lot of ambition, and we received about 6 or 7 VHS tapes. I don't know if you remember any of those.
Um, I remember the contest. I don't remember who applied. I remember who we picked. We ended up picking a Lambda Theta Phi, Manny Velez, was it? He was a nice guy. Nice guy. Um, we bring him in. He MCs our show. I mean, I don't think he really added anything next level. But again, I mean, he's young. This isn't a profession for him. It's something for fun. But he did good enough. Nothing too crazy. But yeah, Manny Velez, Lambda Theta Phi, and we kept in touch with him actually, like even after that. So he was a very nice guy. I hope he's doing well.
Yeah, he used to go by Il Combo or something like that. And we did stay in touch. Like he's still on LinkedIn. Like every now and then he'll message. But we also picked a co-host because we weren't so sure. Like because he was flying in from Florida, so we weren't so sure that he was going to make it. I don't remember why, but we picked a co-host in Greg Casimir, aka Frothy Dog, and I remember. Do you remember how he
I
rolled out?
I don't even remember Frothy Dog actually emceeing at all.
Yeah. He was co-MC, but he was also on the step team at the time, so he had like a dual, but he was just like a backup just in case, which I think is as we've learned over the years, it's always important to have a backup just in case.
Yeah.
So I remember the show opens and Amazura was this weird venue. The one weird thing about the venue was they had a spiral staircase running onto the stage, which I guess is useful for their parties and events, but uh,
Super retarded, very
yeah,
retarded.
it's weird, right? Years
It's like
later.
it's like almost not in the middle of the stage. There's a spiral staircase. Like, why put a stage there? Like, why? It's so very dumb. But it's Jamaica Queens.
Yeah. So stop hating. I'm originally from there. Anyway, so Manny Velez, the MC. He starts off the show coming down the spiral staircase to some uh, what type of music? How do I call it? It was like supposed to be seductive music, and he's coming down the staircase with a cigar in his mouth. I don't know if you remember any of this. A cigar in a venue, and I think it was
I
lit
don't
too.
I don't remember any of that.
Yeah, yeah. But anyway, so long story short, the show opens. It was, as Anthony mentioned, 1,200 people were there. It was another one of those line around the corner. I remember working the door for that event, and I remember seeing the line. And again, Anthony kind of flying out to always check in and see what it looked like.
So the line at Amazura, that's the first time where I was super like excited, like I was like in disbelief that this time it literally went around, it wrapped around the corner. And I was just so proud and so happy that like that many people were waiting in line, which again goes to show that there was a need in the market that no one was filling, that we were able to, provide a entertainment value to this market that they desperately wanted. And you know, it was amazing. And that, yeah, I always remember going out, and I'll never forget going outside and seeing the line literally wrap around the corner, and it was amazing.
Yeah, and the good thing about that was that not only were we seeing that, but sponsors who were there were noticing that. I remember running into Joe Bernard outside of Amazura, and he saw the line wrapped around the corner too, and he was just like, "Hey Zeus, this is fantastic." And I was just like, "Yeah, this is what we do." I acted as if, like I acted like this is a normal thing. And this was my first year working the show for real, so I also met Renata McNeil, Oshira Cabrera, and Jessica Martinez. They came as a trio to the event, and that was it was like in the origin stories of
Mm.
all of these connections we made over the years. That was my first interaction with Lambda Tau Omega, the mermaids. Do you remember? I don't know if you remember seeing them at the show, but they were there.
I don't remember them there, but now that you say that, like the success from Amazura helped us recruit more teams even easier. I'll check the stats, but I'm sure Lambda Tau Omega being in 2001, were they in our 2002 show? They weren't, right? So yeah, so they weren't in the 2001 because they were like, hey, what is this? Let me just go check it out. Once they saw 1,200 people, they were like, we got to be in this show. And next year, I'm sure I don't know, have the numbers in front of me, but I'm sure we doubled the number of teams participating.
Yeah, we at least we tripled the amount of shows because we would go from that. That was the last year we did just one event in the whole year, and we went to three events in 2002. But we'll talk about that in a future episode. But as Anthony mentioned, this show, not that we weren't on the map yet, it just opened the map further. Like we had gone from 900 people to 1,200, a gigantic after party that people were anticipating along with the show. And it was, and sponsors, like we raised the bar there. We had 11 sponsors, even though not all of them were paying money. It still seemed like we had just kind of almost like increased our capacity, and we had a website behind it. And I remember you printed the banner for latinostep.com and put it on the stage. I don't know if you remember this, but like I'm remembering our initial banner.
Yeah, it was probably a really ugly one too. Like I remember the font I used. The font was terrible. It was like the worst font. It was called Magneto. The font was called Magneto, and I'm trying to see if I have it. No, it was on that T-shirt that I wore in episode one. It's the worst font you could use, to print anything on. Um, but yeah,
Yeah, and
that
so
was.
we were so I remember this was the first year we started selling tickets online as well, because now we had a website. So we used TicketWeb, which was an easy provider to sell tickets. It also let us kind of pre-scan the volume that we can anticipate. I believe we pre-sold like 400 tickets. I do recall. I'm always the pessimist, so like I was in that sense, I was worried that we only sold 400, And I remember Aunt reassuring me, "This is a, these people just show up. Like it's gonna happen. Like this is a really good pre-sale, and that's why we paid for a banner out of out of some of that money, and we were able to know, or at least I think you had more confidence than I did going in that it was going to be.
Yeah, I don't remember worrying too much about the attendance. I mean, I wasn't, I knew it would have been at least 900. I didn't know it was going to be, because listen, Amazura, whoever was there knows, like the venue was packed. Like I know we have pictures, old pictures of that day, and it was the floor. It basically, the way I'll describe it, it's a big hall. There's a stage all the way at the other end. There's a bar on the right and the left. Bars, drinking, so you can drink your alcohol on the right and the left. And then the back here was the entrance. So the entire floor was, and I remember we laid out seats actually.